expecting a challenge-free world, a challenge-free life, is the first mistake of consciousness. So today, we get to embrace the opportunity to reveal the face of God. Can we know that affirmation together? Today is my opportunity to reveal the face of God. And so it is. So there's so much going on around here, which is so exciting. And I don't know about your life, I imagine that you're just sitting around eating bonbons most of the time, right? And don't have anything to manage. But juggling work and career and family, and everyone I know in retirement is just as busy as they were when they were working, right? And that's the new normal, right? And it went from email being a really great thing for us. Oh, I don't have to wait for the snail mail to arrive, until we just get to the point that we are absolutely swamped by our inbox. And we have spam filters and other filters to help us sort out our emails, and then they get lost in the multiple layers of the web. And what if we could reimagine all of this? What if we could just take a deep breath and do what Michael just talked about, right? And say, oh, that my idea that this should be easy, that this should be a conflict-free, stress-free life is my first folly, is my first mistake of consciousness. And when we can shift that to understand this is reality, this is absolutely what's happening. And when we can acknowledge the reality, we can then deal with it. But when we're in that denial, that psychological denial, it shouldn't be this way. It just shouldn't be this hard, should it? That belief, whether it is spoken out loud or held in our thought system, is causing 100% of our pain. Even if you say, well, I only think that every now and then, it's still responsible for 100% of your pain, of your discomfort, your anxiety, your stress. When we can let go of the thoughts that cause the stress, guess what happens? Stress is no longer there. Do you need to answer every email? Someone knows it. No. Do we all know that? Do we need to answer every email? No. What is more important, answering the email or taking care of ourselves? I guess this is a quiz. What's more important, answering the email or taking care of ourselves? Taking care of ourselves. Oh, do we behave that way? No. So, yeah, and I'm right there with you, remembering when my kids are calling my name and I'm answering an email, right? There's nothing more purposeful to get me back on track than when my son comes and steals the mouse from me so he can eat it. Not the 21-year-old, the 1-year-old, right? His favorite thing is to try and chew the batteries. He's learned how to take the cover off the back of the mouse so that he can get to the batteries. And it's my chance to relax. We talked to you for the last 2 months about what this year, this beginning of this year, is about for us, and our chance to imagine our Vision Quest 2020. What do we purposefully want this year to be? What is it that we are setting about to create? And to hold that vision firmly in our mind. And this is a wake-up call, because next week starts Advent, the season before Easter, right? Next week, it's already here. We're 2 months into the year, and what are we holding in vision? Or are we just recreating 2019 or 2018 or 1999? Right? Sometimes we've been recreating the same year after year for decades until we wake up and choose something else more consciously. What is it that we really want to create? And when we're going through crises, Often, well-meaning people come to us and say, it's all going to be all right. And we have this well-rehearsed response to them. No, it's not. That's so demeaning. I'm going through this and I'm experiencing it, and you're diminishing my feelings. And we have this way of deflecting the gentle reminder that we'll get through this. This is my favorite test of this. Raise your hand if you've ever been through a personal crisis. Raise your right hand. Okay, and now look around. Keep that hand up. Keep your hand way up so everybody can see if you've ever been through a personal crisis. Now raise your left hand if you've gotten through it. And look around. Right? This is called testifying. Right? It's also a power pose, right? But you don't know what I went through to get here today. You don't know what I'm dealing with my mom and my spouse and everything back at home. You don't know what the doctor has told me. And all of those beliefs that we are our diagnosis, we are our family, we are our situation, keep us from really experiencing the reimagining of our lives. We are in response to the outside world. No? This is the one I wanted. Not yet, Misa. You can just wait. So we are in response to the outside world rather than choosing, like this little seedling, to create new in the midst of the seeming death and old. So something isn't working. Something is falling apart. Something is in crisis. It has come to pass. This too shall pass. Everything that we experience right now, that window had someone else's name on it just 100 years ago. This building was owned by someone else, and it has a new incarnation, a new imagination right here and right now. That window was in terrible shape. It was literally about to fall out. It had pieces of plastic painted with acrylic paint in places where it should have been glass. One of the panels was accidentally put in backwards, and no one noticed it until we started to restore it. Nothing lined up. And there was a whole Jesus panel in the middle. It was Jesus as the Good Shepherd. We've chosen to replace it with a thematic blank space, an opening, a place for new beginnings, this new seedling. Because it's not that we don't honor Jesus. Oh my God, the teachings in the Gospels that are attributed to Jesus are life-changing if you apply them in your life. Living a life in accordance with the teachings of Jesus, which are love thy neighbor and honor God. Those are his principal commandments, right? Says it right there in Scripture. Love thy neighbor as thyself and honor thy God. Period. So when we say God here, I want to be really clear, what we mean is that divine energy that exists within each and every one of us. It's part of our wholeness because God is all. Nowhere that God is not, right? Do we all agree on that? There is nowhere that God is not. And if that's true, he's in every cell of you. It's in every cell of you. Thank you. I heard it, and I was like, I've been listening much to these old black preachers. I'm sorry, and it's always he. And we don't believe that God has a gender. Period. God's not male or female. God is an energy. God is the energy of life itself. Breathing, living, expanding, evolutionary energy. And when we can honor that, when we can say, oh, life is bringing me forth right now. Life is bringing me through this crisis. This thing I call the divine, God, Spirit, whatever, universe, is the thing that is lifting me through this, literally picking me up and walking me to the other side so that the oak tree comes from the seedling. And it's all done when we can imagine beyond what our eyes see, Our ears hear, our senses touch. Right? Pure imagination.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a spin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, oh that's high, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world, there's nothing to it. There is no life I know to compare with your imagination. Living there, you'll be free if you truly wish to be. If you want to see magic lands, close your eyes and you will see one. Want to be a dreamer, be one. Anytime you please, and please save me one. Come with me and you'll be in a world of your imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination. There is no place to go to compare with your imagination. So go there to be free if you truly wish to be.
Song from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, right? A couple weeks ago, Miss Misa Malone. A couple weeks ago, I spoke to you about that everything we needed to know we learned as children. Everything we needed to know to navigate life, we learned when we were as high as Roma, right? And that 4-year-old mind is just ripe with imagination. I remember we were playing one day, and I was getting her to brush her teeth, and we were in the bathroom, and she takes out one of the caps of the tooth, and she wants to have a tea party right there in the bathroom, right? And she gives me this old crusty cap filled with water, going, "Here, Dad, here's a cup of tea." And I was like, "I don't want to drink that, Roma." And she's like, "Just pretend." I was like, "We're just playing," she said to me. And it's like, oh, pretend. That's the way we create new, pure imagination. So in the middle of that crisis, in the middle of that moment when you don't know how to get through it. You imagine your way through it. You pretend your way through it. You see beyond appearances, not as the world as it is, but as you want it to be. How is it that you want the world to be? It's yours to create. Do you really believe that? Or have you got your defense already? Yes, but Reverend Ken, the world is the way it is. There's certain things that just cannot shift. And I'll use Byron Katie. Is that true? Is that absolutely true? Everything has shifted. Everything has shifted. It was a common belief. It was a belief that man could not run faster than a 4-minute mile. That literally scientists would say, said that their hearts would explode if you run a 4-minute mile. One person did it, and then guess what happened? Person after person after person did it. It was possible until someone did it. It's possible. So what do you imagine you're doing? What is the world that you want to create? Because it lies in you. It lies in you. God, Spirit, universe is fully in you. So when you step up, the universe steps up. Playing small or playing your true identity. You are a magnificent expression of the divine. You, each and every one of you, are divine, God in form, divinity defined, as Misa sang. And we're not our circumstances. That song we sing every Sunday morning for a reason. It says we are not our circumstances, we are not the color of our eyes, the color of our skin, we are not our age. We are divine in expression. Michael Beckwith, who I mentioned earlier, has a lot to say on this subject. And here's just a little clip of Michael in action. Keeps going the wrong way. Here we go.
We want you to understand that you are a sacred being right now, and that the presence of God is looking at you, looking at itself as you, and saying, you are my beloved. You are my perfect idea. You are my offspring of infinite potential. Do not block the magic. Do not block the flow. Do not block the grace. The magic, as we're spelling it today, means an intentional act to cause transformation in your life, as opposed to magic that means luck, or magic that some kind of parlor game, something to that effect. When it's spelled with that J and that K, it means an intentional act for you to cause some level of transformation in your own life, so that you're all becoming great spiritual magicians at that level, not settling for the status quo in the world, but you're beginning to say, there's something so magnificent that's within me that can actually create a highway for my perfect unfoldment. I don't care what my lying eyes are telling me about the world. I don't care what my ears are bringing to me from the misuse of media and calling it the news. I am a great magician, a great mystic, a great metaphysician, and I am creating an intentional act with my word and my thought and my action to create intentionally change within my perception and in the world as I see it. I'm rising up and I'm breaking every single agreement that I've made from my previous self, and every single agreement that I've made with society around lack and limitation and scarcity and not enoughness. I'm only holding hands with excellence. I break all agreement with mediocrity today, and I hold the hand, the vibrational hand of excellence. And this is what I see. Don't block the flow. Another name for the flow is that evolutionary impulse that governs all creativity. It's the omni-action of God. Underlying everything, there is a flow of life that's always beckoning itself into greater expression of its potentiality. Our potentiality is infinite. There is no one and done. There is no final resting place. There is no place to get to. The bliss comes from continual unfoldment and the continual releasing of the gifts, talents, capacities, the activation of powers within you, and the subsequent sharing all that is within you after you have cultivated them. You don't want to block the flow. And if you go down the rabbit hole of self-condemnation and perfecting your argument along the way, you're blocking the flow of your magic, the intentional act to create transformation in your life. You're blocking the flow. You're getting in the way of the energy of God. Did you hear what I just said? You got to catch this now, because oftentimes from the Western world you've been trained that you have to do certain things to get God to flow in your direction, and that's not the case at all. God's always God. There never is a moment where there's a famine in the mind of God. There's never a moment when God isn't being God. You're just not in the flow yourself. You block the flow through the arguments that you perfected about life itself. And so you're getting out of the way of the flow that is always happening. Now, when you consider that, it should bring you a certain level of confidence and joy that you don't have to pray to God to be God. I sure hope God is God today, because, the other day God wasn't God. I knocked on the door of the higher power, and God was something else. God's nature had changed. God's energy had shifted up on me. God got some tiny. God got so human. And started having special people and chosen people and people that in cliques and people that God liked. I wasn't in the number that day. I sure hope God is God today for me. That's superstition at its highest, you see? And so when we understand that there's an evolutionary flow, an evolutionary impulse that governs all creation, it's never not itself, that the presence of God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, it gives us a sense of confidence that when we go within and we release the self-condemnation, we release the feeling tone of wretchedness about ourselves, we come into a flow that's always there waiting for us.
Michael Beckwith. You are divine. You are divinity in expression, and you're choosing to see the world and to see life. Michael has an exercise that I want us all, if you can take out your bulletin and turn it over to the back, there's a note page. Michael has this exercise that says, every morning you should list 3 impossible things. 3 impossible things that you're going to make happen. So take out your pen, put on the notes on the back of your bulletin, and list 3 impossible things that you're about today. Right? If you want more than 3, do 3. But what seems impossible? What seems impossible? Anyone want to shout one out? Peace in the world. Is that impossible? Okay, so you see, we've already knocked one down. Right. What else? What else for you said that would be impossible? Because when we are talking about it, when we have our well-worn and well-rehearsed defenses, we have an opportunity come into our lives, and we say, oh, no, that can't happen. That's written in stone. That's not the way the world operates. And all of a sudden, the opportunity which is presenting itself for us is pushed away by us. And we are blocking the flow of the good. As Michael talks about the flow, the infinite flow of good. God, energy, life, universe is constantly showering things upon us. Only when we say yes do they materialize. This building was sitting here for 3 years, unsold, until we said yes, waiting for us to be ready to buy it. They were looking for a buyer for that long. In San Francisco. But we weren't ready. And when we let go of the can'ts, no, scary, we like our place, how will this be, how will that be, and walked into the unknown, because that's what it takes to create something new, If you're going to create something new, do you know what it's like? No! You can imagine, but until you actually get there, you don't know. So that takes courage, right? The definition of courage is not action without fear. The definition of courage is action in the face of fear, right? You are never not going to feel that fear, but to let it stop you, to let it say, well, that's just the way I am. And I know this. I know it really well because I use it all the time. And recently, my husband, who's not asleep, pointed it out to me, right? It's like there's a situation in my life, and I've shared this before. I was abused as a child. And something, a pattern of behavior that I have developed over my lifetime keeps reoccurring. And I say, well, that's because of that. And I point to the abuse. And I've gone through decades of therapy over it. I've gone to weekend workshops. I've identified it. I know it. I can see it. I can trace the lines. And I'm still doing the behavior based on something that happened when I was 8. Right? And I have compassion for myself, but it is time to get over it. And it is time to choose a new behavior because realization is not liberation. Realization is not liberation. Do you get that? Just because you know that's the button that got installed, that's the tick that was put into my childhood by my parents or by some caregiver or by some random stranger or whatever, some teacher, doesn't give us permission to keep doing the behavior based on that mistake that, I could have had a V8 from decades ago. Right? Today, we get to choose to be in the flow of life. And the flow of life is giving us love, giving us unbelievable love, giving us everything we need, all material wealth, all substance comes from the divine, comes as the divine. And in that moment, when we say yes, we get to change what seems to be into what could be. And we get to explode every flow of water into an unbelievable, unrecognizable landscape. We get to create the next right thing. And we have to do it by thinking differently. We cannot create the new world, the world at peace, whatever you wrote down on your bulletins there, the impossible things, can't be created by thinking the same way. We literally have to think differently. Upside down, backwards, sideways, throw it all out, try everything new. Because that's what we need to be in that divine flow of the universe constantly expanding itself. Carol is sitting here. She's on our board, vice president of the board right now. And she came to me the other day and she said, Reverend Ken, I had the most amazing dream, a most amazing dream. I was like, we were so packed up here, but we have an overflow room with a screen downstairs so that we can have service. Well, that's what they have at Agape. They have 3 services on Sunday, and the third service, the one at noon, is packed so much that they have an overflow room. I was like, that's a fabulous dream. And it's limited. Let's think even bigger. We should have 3 services here on Sunday, or maybe Saturday night and 2 on Sunday, so that all those millennial kids we keep saying we want to attract, who are out partying on Saturday night and not going to be here at 10 o'clock like my son, not going to be here at 10 or 10:30, can do a Saturday night service, and it can be different. What do we want to think? Or maybe it's not a service at all. Who knows? But we get to color outside the lines. We get to pretend. We get to create what we envision for the world, for ourselves. And when we think differently, everything shifts. Just like that moment when I realized, I really want liberation. But I've used all those years in therapy and all that self-knowledge to anchor myself into a past that I say I don't want anymore, that I've forgiven, that I've let go. But my behaviors say something differently. How are we around our finances? How are we around our personal relationships? How are you around your family? Are there stories that we tell ourselves that we could reimagine? What if we reimagined our relationship with our mothers and fathers? That one got a rumble. What if we reimagined our relationship with our children? Right? What if we reimagined our relationship with ourselves? What if, like Michael talked about, we stop the self-condemnation and the excuses and go, what do I want to create today? Because your past is not your identity. Anything you've ever done is not who you are. Right here and right now, in this very moment, you are the living expression of the divine. And the infinite potential that exists takes something that looks like a modern waterscape and blows it completely up. And blows it apart. And makes it explode with color, just like that window explodes with color. If you had come to me and wanted to design that window with all those colors in them, I might have looked at you like you're crazy. But together, they all have a synchronicity and a pattern and a life force. And someone created it. The creative force that is you is ready to explode, is ready to blow you apart. And it's your opportunity today to step up and to allow it to happen. So Misa and our incredible backup singers have one more song for you that's about this moment. No matter where you are on your journey, no matter where you are in your journey, you're in the right place. Do you know that? Do you? No matter where you are on your journey, you're in the right place. Because from right here is where everything starts.